Everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be a fall book recommendation in a like this, try that kind of style. I have a little bit of everything in here, so you should be able to find at least one thing that interests you. So we're going to get to it. These are all books that I have enjoyed. So if you are someone that enjoys dark academia and you want to read more, you might have read The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I feel like that one is super well known, or Babel by R.F. Kuang. I feel like this one is a little bit more underrated, and personally I think it's my favorite of all of the ones that I've read, and it is If We Were Villains. So dark academia vibes for sure if you enjoy reading about insufferable characters. So insufferable characters that go to this university that theater kids are learning Shakespeare plays. It's definitely a big part of the book. I knew nothing of Shakespeare. I didn't have to read any in school, so even while having no knowledge, I still really enjoyed this one. You do get a murder mystery. I also think this would make for a great audiobook because of all the Shakespeare quotes in there. But yes, if you're looking for dark murder mystery, dark academia, insufferable characters, I think this is a big part of the reason people might not enjoy dark academia, just the characters, but they're meant to be insufferable. So if you keep that in mind, it's probably going to help. Claudia, you're so distracting right now. So yes, definitely the first one I would recommend checking out in my top 10-ish. If you are someone that enjoys Gothic vibes, then I would have to recommend this one. This is The 13th Tale, which this had been forgotten on my shelf for years, and apparently this was popular when it first came out. But this one, you're following the story of this very famous author, female author. At the time this was quite rare, and she has never revealed her whole story or life story. It was always hidden. Are you seriously biting the microphone? I'm gonna kick her out because this is not gonna work. And now that she is much older, she is finally ready to reveal what happened, who she truly is. And she asked this girl who really isn't someone that usually writes these kind of stories. She did it once, and she invites her over to reveal what happened. So if you enjoy Gothic, usually has like really creepy, weird family stories, you definitely get that here. And I overall enjoy it quite a bit. So that's usually more hit and miss for me, again, as a genre, but this was good. So would recommend that one if you enjoyed these kind of books, like Wuthering Heights, these kind of dark characters that have always, again, weird family. I feel like that's what I associate Gothic vibes with. And like she's revealing her story in like this library. Like you get all the vibes for fall. If you enjoy murder mystery, small towns, kind of paranormal vibes, I would recommend Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. This is my favorite book by her. There's also, I think, The Broken Girl that you would probably like if you enjoy this one. But she tends to play with timeline going back and forth between two storylines. And in this one, small town women are disappearing, and this girl decides to go work there because I think it was her aunt that disappeared years ago, and she works at this hotel. Weird things are happening. Is it ghost? We don't really know. And yeah, this was actually really good. I enjoyed it. Would recommend. If you are a true crime lover, you have to pick up Bright Young Women. I was intrigued by this book, but at the same time, I'm not a huge true crime lover. I know some of you are watching like all the documentaries, all the podcasts, and I picked it up due to a challenge, and I ended up really liking it. So I will be recommending it a lot. I know this is inspired by true events. So you have this serial killer that goes into this sorority house and kills a bunch of the girls. I do think the writing was good. Eventually things got more clear towards the middle for me. I feel like there are a few characters, and to be completely fair to the book, it's 100% on me because you get the character for each chapter, but there are 3 main female point of views, and like one of them is in both stories, and then like I got a little confused, I'll admit. But towards the middle, things started to make a lot more sense to me, and I enjoyed it towards the end. The author kind of sneaks in some personal judgment, but like I agree with her, so it totally worked for me. I have a few quotes, like with the title, for example, Bright Young Women. This is to poke fun of the fact that too many judges have said like, oh, these bright young men don't deserve to have their life ruined, as if they didn't, ruin other people's life. So that was appreciated. She also made comments about the lawyer, the female lawyer of the defendant, which again, some of you told me this is inspired by the actual female lawyer, and good for her. I appreciate it too. So the judge at one point does say, "You are a bright young man," which like will never not piss me off. And again, some judgment about the judges having too much empathy with some of those criminals. Again, I read a book, I always mention it when I talk about this book because it's a nonfiction that you need to pick up, entitled, because the author talks about the entitlement, but also what she calls empathy. So the fact that too many men like this will have more empathy for the criminal than the victim. It's just, anyway, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but sometimes it's like even you're telling a story to someone in your life, and again, they start defending a stranger over you, the person they're supposed to care about. But I'm going on a tangent here, but yes, in general, this was a good surprise for me. I do enjoy it. And if you are, again, a true crime lover, if you haven't heard of this, you need to check it out. Obviously, I need to include some proper dark thriller. If that's your jam, again, you might have heard of this one, but still worth mentioning. This is the kind worth killing. In my defense, I did read this like 7 years ago at this point, so bear with me. I'm hoping that I would still love it if I were to reread it right now, but this is so twisty. And it's not a spoiler. I feel like thrillers and twists go hand in hand, but the story starts a little crazy. You have this female character who meets this man randomly at the bar in a airport, and they kind of start plotting the murder of his wife, and things go very much crazy afterwards, and it was very interesting. There is technically a second book which I did read. I don't think it's worth it, but I would absolutely recommend checking out this one, at least if you enjoy these kind of books that keep you up at night. You need to know what's going to happen. This one would be it for me. Another one that is a good option because it basically reads like a movie, yet you're emotionally invested. I feel like they don't tend to go together for me. Like thrillers in general, I just want to figure out what happened, but in this case, I really cared about the characters and they're kind of morally gray. But you're just rooting for them. Razorblade Tears, which I've been calling this my dad recommendation because I often have people asking me, especially in real life, like, oh, do you have something that you could recommend to like my dad, my brother, my husband, whatever? This would be one of the ones I would recommend. Like I said, definitely reads like an action movie. A lot of like pew pew punching people, which usually not 100% my jam, but in this case, again, I was so emotionally invested. You're following these two fathers. They've not been good fathers. They have a criminal past, and they're not close to their sons because their sons are gay and married, and they were murdered. So they kind of form an allyship, reluctant friendship, and they decide to figure it out because the police hasn't done their job properly. So they go on a mission. That's why I was saying punching people, everything, because they need answers, and they will get answers. A lot will be happening in here. So once again, something that you have to find out what's going to happen. And it's not super long, but either way, it will keep you up at night because you need to figure out what happens. So if that's your jam, this would be your second option. If you don't want any of that, if you want something cozy, maybe something a little witchy, definitely my new cup of tea. I discovered this genre, the subgenre, last year, and I read a couple, and I have two favorites to mention. The first one is Garden Spells. This is basically Practical Magic 2.0. I feel like I love the movie. I read the book. I don't feel like it aged super well, and this one is just a better version of it. It is still fairly close because you have sisters, small town, magic. One of them left as soon as she could, and she is dealing with domestic violence. So she comes back to town and she sees her sister again, who, you know, lives a very isolated life. She wants her little life, and she actually cooks a lot. They have an apple tree, magical apple tree in the back in their backyard. You have again the gossipy small town. So there's a lot of like classic tropes of coziness, and you do get some romance, and I'm usually not super into romance, but I feel like this was perfect. It just feels like a warm cup of tea. So if you're looking for something to read during the fall, I would recommend this one. Like I said, there's some DV, but it's not a big portion of the book, just as a disclaimer. And there's one character I was worried her storyline was going to be sexist, but it's fine. It's fine. So if you're starting it and you're like, I'm not sure, push through. I feel like it's absolutely worth checking out. I adore this. This was a 5-star, and there is technically a second book, but it's just okay. So you can totally read this as a standalone, but if you love it, obviously you can continue, but absolutely worth checking out if you want cozy witchy. I would love more recommendations, actually. If you want cozy witchy, but also a little bit of a murder mystery, I would recommend In the Company of Witches, which I know this cover. Some of you love it. Personally, I kind of hate it, but like it's so bad that it's almost good. And I feel like I would have never picked it up if I hadn't just been randomly checking out audiobooks available at my library. And I was like, you know what? It sounds good, even though, but it's good. I keep saying it's a little bit of a mix of like Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, with a little bit like Gilmore Girls, maybe. Because you have this main female character, again, small town. She is part of a family of witches. She has two aunts that own a bed and breakfast. So like you kind of see the vibes. And unfortunately, one of her aunt has a big mouth. She has definitely an attitude. And she may have said that she wishes that their only customer at the time would be found. And then the next day she is found. So the small town is obviously already not on their side there. So you follow my female character trying to figure out what actually happened. She's also currently dealing with grief. So even though there are some serious topics, I do still feel like this is definitely a cozy book. I also have read the second book, which also a crazy cover. I enjoyed it a little bit less, but I do think that if you enjoyed book one, you'll enjoy book two. And if you're looking for more witchy, cozy, but this time murder mystery vibes, this would be my recommendation. I really enjoyed this. And I'm definitely looking for more. But if you are someone that is a horror lover, I don't read a ton of them, but I have a couple to mention. And like I said 10, but like ish, because there are two from the same author because I just finished one of his books and enjoyed it. So Grady and Ricks, I really enjoyed My Best Friend Exorcism. Took me by surprise. This cover, I feel like, see, the other one was like so bad that it's kind of good, but this one I feel like is just good. I love the vibes. The author uses the classic horror tropes and he just fully embraces them. I feel like it would be easy to make fun of them, but I don't think he does. But his horror books, especially this one, feels a bit funny at times because, I mean, it's an exorcism, but like, it's not super serious. I also appreciated that in this one, you're following a group, like a friend group of teenage girls, and it would have been easy, once again, to be kind of sexist about it. And he didn't, so thank you. The bar is low, but thank you. So obviously, when the girls is kind of being weird, the best friend is suspecting that maybe she needs an exorcism and things just go a little crazy. And yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Would recommend. And quickly shout out because I just finished this, but Horror Store. This was good. My female character is pretty depressed. She is struggling with money and she has this dead-end job at a store. It's called Orcs. And it's like a dupe, like a cheap dupe of IKEA. And she has to work a night shift this one time, and you can see in the back. Things get really weird, horror-y, and I liked it. Towards the end, I wasn't sure how the ending was going to like feel, if it was going to be satisfying, but I actually did enjoy the ending. And it's not super serious, once again, as a book, but if you want to try horror, but not too horror, I feel like his books just work for me, and I did have a few moments where I'm like, "Okay, this is actually creepy," and obviously this format that looks like an IKEA catalog is just it's just funny, so I would recommend this one too. And last but not least, an actual horror book. I've mentioned it before, but Sour Candy is definitely one of the ones that have worked for me. I feel like in general, I don't really care for these kind of like creepy books where you get no answers. And like I know sometimes open ending can work, but like that's like the exception for me. I feel like I just want you to give it to me. Okay? Is it ghost? Is it aliens? Is it I don't know, anything. Just you as an author, it's your job to tell me. I don't want to have to again, sometimes it works, but this one you get an answer, which is important to me. So I can't tell you too much because this is the shortest book by far in this video. This is like 75 pages. But it starts with the main character being at this store and there's this child losing over sour candy and things happen. It's creepy. I enjoyed it. You get an answer at the end, and it was good. I would recommend it if you want an actual horror book. Again, I don't read a ton of them, but this one I liked. So I thought this would be a fun format to give you more recommendations for books to pick up during the fall. I will link down below. I have done more books, videos, more videos recommendation. I can put some on the screen too of like my all-time favorite fall reads. But I thought this format would be fun. Like if you like this, try that. Let me know in the comment section if you have read these, how you felt about them. Are there any other recommendations that would fit in these categories that you could recommend us? And I will see you in an upcoming video very soon. Bye. It's hard to be mad at her. She's so sweet, but so sassy.